and welcome to the Cryptonaut podcast. I am Mark Stores, and with me, as always, is...
I'm Chris.
Oh, so alive and so vibrant.
So alive.
I know, no doubt. He's like an undulating rainbow of passion right before our eyes.
I took a power nap like 5 minutes ago.
You really did. It looked like deep meditation. Deepak Karno over here was totally in the zone.
Yeah, I was thinking about Kenny G again.
Oh, God.
The long note.
Yeah.
And you are, good sir.
Rob Morphy.
Thank you all so very much for joining us. Gentlemen, Halloween has come and gone. My year is officially come to an end.
Yes, the culmination
over.
of glories.
Happy New Year.
July 4th to October 31st, Mark's year.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is the downtime.
It is.
The remainder.
And sadly, I have to report, though I did have a fun time trick-or-treating with my children. It's always fun to do that. I feel as though something this Halloween was different because we went out during the day, and by the time it was actually dark, everybody just shut it down. So I don't know if it's just this. I don't know what exactly happened, but
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I saw a lot of people out actually early.
I think maybe the area that we were in, they were just like, we're not having this bullshit this year. So, which is understandable. I get it. Because I did hear rumors that there was actually quite a hubbub across the street at the Hoops Park where there was just scads of children in clown houses and killers running amok and candy to be had for all. And then me and my poor kids just trudging around looking for little tiny lights to be like, trick or treat? Do you have any candy? Because I'm going to kick your fucking trash can over if you don't.
Wow.
Yeah, and it didn't happen. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry
wow.
about that Halloween
yeah,
experience.
no, I've got to say it was a bummer. But you know
Are
what?
you suggesting, though, that there was a huge celebration at Hoops Park that you didn't
Yeah,
attend?
I don't
or
understand
that,
what you mean by that.
Or
Yes.
that by the time you got there, there was nothing left but little twinkling lights in the aftermath of candy.
We picked the wrong area.
Oh, gotcha.
It's the area that I've been bringing the kids to since they've been little babies, and it's been jumping.
That's why you got to burn tradition.
I think this year, man.
Start anew.
No, I think next year's got to be different. We have to go to the super duper rich section.
Right
Just
on.
stay up there.
I was hanging out with my baby nephews a little bit, with his parents taking him trick-or-treating. He's 3 now, so he's starting to just get the gist of it. And I don't know, there was a plethora of cool
Yeah.
costumes and inflatable dinosaurs and mayhem and
Yeah.
people with giant, like 30-foot, I'm exaggerating, maybe 20-foot full-on skeletons
Yeah, that's a
somehow
big thing this year.
mounted to their lawn.
Oh, yeah.
And just incredible stuff. So I thought that people were coming back with a vengeance after like the
Yeah.
COVID placation of last year.
I think the streets we picked, they were just like, I think they were solid for a couple of years, but like most things, like the shit's solid, then all of a sudden it just dries up and you got to move on next year. So
Yeah.
you know what, though, look, my year's done, but you know what, I'm pre-planning for next year, baby.
You have to.
I got this shit done.
We okay?
Dude,
Yeah.
you still have all your fingers and most of your teeth.
I
You've
do.
got to plan for the full firework fucking candy-thon that is your year.
I did. I will. I do. And I managed to only dump about 8 empties into somebody's fucking yard can in the front of their house. So it wasn't a bad.
Well, that's not littering.
No, I didn't want to litter. That's why I'm like, this is a can full of yard debris, but here's some aluminum with your yard debris. And I thought it was
Hand
very
in hand.
Yeah.
Man.
Always burn my aluminum every autumn.
the garbage in the morning, and I totally appreciate that. Patreon is a thing that we offer, Robert, and we have some patrons to thank before we get started.
Thank the baby we do. Dedicated, loving Patreons. And here's the new group.
Okay.
Jamie Miskell.
Thank you so much, Jamie.
Anders Olsen.
Hell yeah, Anders, what up?
Melissa Bruner.
What up, Melissa?
Stephen Larson.
Steven, thank you.
Laurel Tucker. Laurel.
Oh, shit, Laurel.
I've communicated with Laurel.
Yeah, no,
Thanks,
super
Laurel.
cool. Thank you so much.
646 Klein.
Is that like a rapper?
I hope so.
It could be.
Or it's a plane I'm utterly unfamiliar with.
Yeah, that's true.
Kip Bisson.
Hell yeah. Actually, I've been in contact with Kip. What up, Kip? Thank you so much for your continued contributions.
Alex Ray.
Hell yeah, Alex.
Aaron the Fucking Andrews.
Best middle name ever,
Dang,
Aaron.
The
What up?
Fucking. Oh, I love it.
Fuck yeah.
Eric Troutman.
Thank you, Eric.
David Mucky.
What up, Mr. Muggy?
Amaryllis Bloom.
Hell yeah, and thank you for the proper pronunciation. Robert pointed out that he could definitely nail that name. I would marry Lissus.
Yeah.
I would have done it. Thank
It's
you.
one of the few oddly spelled names that I just happen to know. But yes, Amaryllis. Lovely, lovely moniker.
Nice.
Let's wrap this up with Zeller Borg.
Hell yeah,
Oh,
Zellerborg.
shit. The Borg.
Second cousin to Locutus.
Yeah, really, though.
Thank you all for your continued Patreon contributions. That's available over there at patreon.com/Cryptonaut podcast. And on Halloween, we had a little bit of a super prize happen.
What?
I don't even know if you know about this
I
yet.
know nothing about any of this.
We had 2 episodes drop on the same day on Halloween.
Oh, shit.
We had our normal pod that we do here.
Right.
And then we had a guest appearance that we did over at the Monsters Among Us podcast with our good buddy Derek Hayes.
Super fun. Had a ball with Derek, as we always do.
Yep, and we did some it's the Monsters Among Us Rewind, where we covered some calls that have been on previous shows.
Some classic cases that Derek has already gone over, but he wanted our particular point of view to spice it up a little.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
you guys did good.
yeah. Wow.
And we actually waited for Chris to show up.
I forgot I was
lonely
supposed to,
debutantes. We fucking waited at the party, at the door, no corsage, and did our date show? No. So did we go in without him? We did. Did we make do?
Yeah.
Sure. But
someday
yeah,
I will be
absence
on
was
there, but like it's just bad days for that's rock and roll day for me.
Yeah, that's Chris's band practice day. I didn't
What do you do
realize
on rock
that
and roll day? Yeah, you're
until
right.
I had texted him and I was waiting to hear back from him. He never showed up, and then me and Robert sat at the prom alone. But then Derek came, and he's like, "You guys are pretty fucking cool." And we were like, "Thanks, man."
I mean, you're not in
danced with us
bands
the
like
whole
Chris,
time.
but you're okay.
I'm in a band. I'm in a 3-man podcast. There you have it. So check that out on patreon.com/Cryptonaut podcast. This week we are going back. This is the second part of the wild world of Harrison Bailey.
Love it.
In the hopes of unlocking repressed memories of a bizarre incident that occurred nearly a quarter of a century before, Reverend Harrison E. Bailey agreed to undergo hypnotic regression, whereupon he opened a Pandora's box of recollections involving missing time, alien abductions, bizarre insects, psychokinetic assault, and a small army of shrieking, frog-like fiends.
Our favorite. Frog-like fucking anything.
It is our jam.
It really is. I know it's a personal jam of mine. I know you guys share it to a degree, and I know our audience loves anything that's vaguely humanoid and frog-like, because how can you fucking not?
No,
it's literally the
sure.
coolest. Always the coolest.
Totally.
And we're going to deliver.
Well, Robert, let's get started with part 2 of the wild world of Harrison Bailey.
And like all classic 80s, I suppose they still do it now, but I'm going to pretend it's retro, television shows that came back after a week, assuming that their audience might have forgotten a few things, let's go for a little recap. In our first installment, steelworker and part-time ad man Harrison E. Bailey was pushing his trusty green tractor wheel down the highways of Illinois in an effort to drum up appreciation for his favorite baseball team, the St. Louis Browns. No longer a team, needless to say. Bailey wasn't being paid for his efforts. It was a matter of pride combined with the rare honor of getting to meet the team's owner, Bill Veek, at the end of his long journey. Bailey was no stranger to pushing the mammoth wheel for miles on end. In fact, selling panels of advertising to be placed within the spinning billboard was how he supplemented his income on his days off from his full-time position at the Gary, Indiana steel mill. For Bailey, who loved the fresh air and solitude, these weekend marathon-length jaunts were more of a pleasant challenge than a terrible chore. Love pushing the wheel. Love getting the air.
For sure.
Love supporting the Browns.
Gotta do it.
That would be until the morning of September 24th, 1951, the day that this industrious, ambitious young man's once firm grip on the nature of reality and his place in it was shattered, turning his workaday world upside down and leaving him reeling in the aftermath, leaving this once healthy and vibrant individual a mere shell of his former self. That's a bad scene. After contending with an inexplicable whirlwind, a run-in with the green-helmeted occupants of a metallic, egg-shaped craft, severe and sudden cramps unlike any he had ever felt before, and nearly becoming the victim of a small-town anti-alien posse, a sort of racist roadblock that almost really caused a terrible day.
Yeah, it's not good, dude.
Bailey's life was never the same. But it wasn't just the psychological trauma that took its toll on Bailey. After consulting various doctors about his chronic pain and lethargy, it was determined, following a gallbladder surgery, that his internal organs were those of a man 3 times his age. Had Bailey been exposed to something that not only caused him severe pain during his trek through Orland Park, but had permanently damaged him as well? In 1966, Bailey retired from the steel mill on a disability pension, and he and his wife Anna moved to the sunny climes of Southern California in the hope that it would improve his physical condition. But he had no such luck. After decades of suffering what he referred to as flying saucer disease, quote-unquote, Bailey reached out to the public in the hopes of finding someone, anyone, who might have had a similar experience or could help him. One of the people who answered his call was UFO investigator Ann Druffel, who convinced Bailey to undergo hypnotic regression, hoping that it might help to unveil what had actually happened to him during a period of nearly 6 missing hours during his ordeal. Bailey, now a Baptist minister, agreed, and on May 18th, 1977, and again on June 6th as well as September 28th of the same year, under the supervision of Dr. W.C. McCall, he was put into a hypnotic trance and regressed back to the fateful night of September 24th, 1951. This, according to Druffel's report in the May 1978 issue of Fate magazine, is what happened. As he sat deep in hypnotic trance, the Pasadena, California minister shifted uncomfortably. He was reliving a frightening experience that had lain hidden in his unconscious mind for over a quarter of a century. The rest of us watched quietly in the private lounge of a hospital in Southern California where Dr. W.C. McCall, William to his friends, had regressed the Reverend Harrison E. Bailey back to a warm September day in 1951. The story emerging from this hypnotic session was astounding and disturbing, quite unlike anything any of us had ever heard before. In trance, Bailey was walking along a road somewhere between Cicero and Joliet, Illinois, on Highway 6, he stated carefully, near where it joins Highway 7. His own footsteps, an occasional bird call, and the swoosh of his own great green advertising wheel were the only sounds. He glanced back briefly at what he thought was a gray whirlwind and then continued on his way. You guys remember that weird Oz-like tornado that did nothing and we don't know how big it is. A stretch of woods waited ahead. Bailey suddenly interrupted his account to shout, "Right up there! They're waiting for me!" End quote. So in the hypnotic session, he burst out.
No, boy.
What is they? McCall wanted to know. Bailey did not answer. He was busy trying to comprehend an incomprehensible sight. You say they're waiting for you. Does that mean you saw them before? McCall asked patiently. Well, I saw them before I got to them, Bailey said, responding in the maddeningly literal phrasing characteristic of a person in a deep trance. A lot of little bugs, Bailey said. He paused. They're bigger than a bug, about the size of a big frog. They're on a log that's partly out in the road. They're coming close to me, a lot of them on both sides, close enough to touch me. End quote. Bailey's smooth brown face took on an expression of distaste. Quote, a frog hops. These are walking.
Frogs should not walk.
No.
Okay.
The old walking frog.
All right, there you go.
He shifted uneasily. Quote, I don't know how come so many of them. I've been touched, maybe bit. I start to run. Wood's still dark. It was early morning when I went in. Should be out of the woods by now. It seems to be getting pretty late. I don't understand. I'm beginning to feel confused. I must have laid down. I know I wouldn't lay down. It's a wooded area, no houses. End quote. McCall questioned Bailey carefully. And later I did the same. From this, we learned what Bailey had been trying to say. As Bailey approached the dark woods, he claimed he saw a strange creature lying flat on a log, staring at the approaching human being. Other creatures like it were lurking half-hidden on both sides of the road. All right, that's just troublesome.
Yeah, when there's a whole, group around you, just kind of coming in at you.
Tiny things with eyes.
Yeah, not good.
All right. I guess it's okay because it's the woods, but when they're all kind of looking at you and you're not sure what the fucking deal is, and you're really not sure what time it is, and your whole, I guess, ability to sense what's going on around you is starting to slip a little for whatever reason, it's just problematic.
It's not good.
No. Okay. So, half hidden both sides of the road, Bailey stared back at the creature whose prominent eyes curled around the side of its head. At the same time, he noticed numerous little round objects scurrying about in the road ahead. These did not worry him as much as the larger creatures did because he figured his heavy boots would protect his feet.
And they're good for kicking.
They're good for kicking.
Yeah.
You got little tiny things with eyes, and you got boots. Guess what you can do to those eyes? Kick them.
You can kick them.
That's right.
Yep. And the little shell things, what the fuck? You got to lace up tight, tuck in the jeans, and make it happen.
Make it happen.
Suddenly, the thing on the log got up and walked towards Bailey's. Walked is italicized there. Startled, he realized quickly that whatever it might be, it was not a frog. Then all of the frog-like creatures, close to a dozen in all, clustered around him. Their high-pitched calls sounded like piercing cries of wild ducks. They seemed to be talking with each other. We've all heard clusters of ducks. That's not a pleasant cacophony.
No, it actually scares the shit out of me. Because the quarry's in my backyard.
Yes.
You guys know that. And that's the geese huddle there on their travels. There's like hundreds.
Yep.
And all of a sudden I'll hear like this, it sounds like screaming.
Yes.
I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, oh, it's the fucking geese.
Right.
We go outside, you just hear.
No, it's like a cocktail party that got out of control like that. Like just suddenly it's stabbing and mayhem and no one knows what. And then oh no, it's fucking waterfowl.
You know, it's funny that Chris brings up those because I work at a spot, a location that we check is right near his house, and we were just there, and there was a shitload of it, and I'm like, that's awful. Someone needs to take care of those geese. Tell them to leave.
Tell them
You're
to
being
leave.
loud, and there's apartments, and there's children trying to sleep.
It doesn't wake me up. I mean, I can hear it, but it
makes
doesn't
me
like.
uneasy. They need to leave.
Well, it's a little pond for them to rest on their journey.
They're fine.
Dickhole. Let them rest.
I'm thinking of you, man. I'm here for
literally
you.
just said it doesn't bother me.
Okay, fine.
Except for sometimes it scares me.
Yeah, when it's not eliciting terror, it's
Stop
fine.
scaring Chris.
It takes a couple seconds for me to realize what it is all.
What if you were seeing ambulatory frog-like creatures, not frogs specifically, because
Frog-esque.
they hop, yes, froggish things walking around, foot and a half tall, screaming like geese.
Kickings.
Yeah, that's a different thing completely.
Yeah.
Kickings will happen.
I'll be like, you migrating south? I'll be like, yeah, Chris. And then I'll be like, on your way.
On your way.
Hope you had a good rest.
Here's
my
a
quarry.
compass.
My quarry, like it's mine.
On your way. On your way, good sir.
Bailey could not understand why they walked along with him, repeatedly jumping up to touch his hips, his waist, and his shoulder. Just like I guess it's like fans.
Yeah, like, hey, what's going on, buddy?
Dude, look, it's
fuck.
Bailey. Oh, we get to touch Bailey.
You're that super cool advertising dude that we heard about.
Touching him all over. It's a little weird, but I mean, I guess flattering.
Okay.
Okay.
It's weird.
What were they? About 18 inches in height, they were covered with brown, smooth, striped skin. Their paws were like little hands and their feet three-toed. They jumped and touched. Oh, it's just weird. Bailey was grateful for his protective overalls. The sensation he felt when they touched him was unpleasant.
It's not good, especially if you're wearing overalls and they're touching you and you're like, this is unpleasant.
Well, I think the act of them existing and then going out of their way to touch him makes it unpleasant. That might have a psychological patina.
Oh,
The touch itself might not be what's so bad, unless it was like touching bare skin and it was slimy and weird.
Oh, that's gross.
But he's covered up pretty well. Bailey noticed that the entities had slit-like mouths, but except for the eyes, their faces and heads seemed quite featureless. Bailey fought them off with his left hand, not the easiest of feats because he was trying to roll the wheel at the same time. All this time, numerous little creatures, quote-unquote, like bugs, evidently accompanied his 18-inch companions, skittering in all directions along the road in front of Bailey. They had dark round shells about 1 inch in diameter. Since Bailey was looking almost directly down at them, he could not determine what type of living being existed underneath the shells. That's just
So
fucked
not got
up.
weird beetles?
Like a sea of beetles just
Yeah,
scuttling like scarabs and bad CGI in a mummy film.
Oh, okay.
While these, I guess, dozen or so walking frogs are just hopping next to you, keep trying to give random parts of your body high fives. And you're just like trying to push your wheel going, just trying to get to St. Louis, dude.
Hey, what the fuck is happening here?
Madness.
Yeah, exactly. It's fucking a complete descent into madness.
In any case, Bailey did not look at them closely because he feared that their erratic motions would confuse him. Oh, so if you stare too much at the undulation, you trip, the frogs are now face high. That's trouble.
I easily get vertigo, so I can totally see where he's coming from.
He started to run, pushing his wheel harder to keep up with his hurrying steps. After a few minutes, he left the alien horde behind. Nevertheless, concerned that one might still be clinging to him, he brushed his clothing.
It's a good thing to do.
One
Just
could
in
grip a
case, yeah.
pocket. It makes sense. Suddenly, he felt a vast heaviness, and time became unclear. The next thing he knew, some hours had passed, and he was still in a stretch of forest. He passed along a thinner section of woods dotted with large ponds of marsh water. Here Bailey noticed a large object sitting in or on top of one of the ponds, just off the road to his right. It was roughly the size of a Greyhound bus, and its surface was rounded, silvery gray, and smooth. Now, we might recall from last week, this is part that he actively recalled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
So the other part slipped out of his memory, the frog creatures, the scuttlebugs, the vertigo, I guess. Bailey slowed his pace. He heard a sliding sound and saw an opening appear in the body of the object. 2 helmeted men stood looking at him. For 26 years, Bailey would not allow his conscious mind to consider the possibility that his encounter had been anything but a brief, seemingly pointless conversation across the road. Under McCall's soft and patient questioning, Bailey repeatedly resisted the doctor's efforts to uncover the mystery of the missing hours. Quote, "Do you think they took you aboard that tank during the time you were in the woods?" McCall asked. A full hour after the start of the hypnotic session, Bailey paused for a long time. "Well, if they did," he countered, "you wouldn't talk about a thing like that. People have very peculiar ideas about people who see something like that," end quote. Later in the session, McCall tried again. Quote, "You mentioned that if you had been taken aboard, you wouldn't tell anyone about it." He said, you'd have no objections to telling us about it, though, would you?" "I can't," Bailey said. "I can't recall going aboard. I don't want to be nowhere around. I don't want to know too much," end quote. Finally, after being assured that Bailey's Christian God was protecting him and that the danger had passed, Bailey revealed what he knew in his own mind to be the truth. Quote, "I probably have to be put to sleep to go in there," he ventured. He speculated that the touch of the strange frog-like creatures might have induced a state of slumber, or perhaps he thought they had bitten him without his knowledge.
They got the sleepy venom.
The sleep venom!
Yeah.
Frogs have sleep venom. I don't know how many times I see frogs and then I'm napping within minutes and I don't know why.
Poison toads, right?
Well, sleepy poison toads.
The LSD toads.
Ah, yeah.
Oh.
Well, I guess I should stop licking them so often.
Oh, shit.
I'll
All
kick
right.
an object, lick a toad.
He accidentally jumped at him and hit him in the mouth, maybe?
Yeah,
And then started
accidentally.
tripping balls.
There
Okay.
it is.
I mean,
Weird.
yeah.
It's the only way it can work.
Okay.
He awakened inside the craft, lying on a low-slung bed which felt strangely soft. A bright diffused light shone in his face. He could vaguely see machine-like shapes around the room. Then the 2 strange occupants approached. About 5 feet in height, they seemed benevolent enough, but Bailey avoided looking at them closely. Behind the tinted shields, their features were flattened and bizarre. So, that's a description that's happened numerous times, the green face shields. I can't, and there's no way of ever knowing for sure, but I can't reconcile in my mind whether or not this helmet is just too tight and like any of our faces pressed against glass, it would look flattened and weird. Or if that's actually their features, and that's just the deal.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like when a kid presses their face in the fucking car window and you're
Exactly.
Ugh! And this is just like this is how their fucking helmets work.
It would be super uncomfortable, but if for some reason they crash landed in a pond in Illinois in the early 1950s and they had like child-sized helmets and it's the only way they could survive long enough to talk to the tractor guy, which was essentially important or evidently important to them for some reason, that maybe they just jammed them on their heads and it was too tight, or maybe they really do have compression faces.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I don't know.
We don't know. There's just no way to know. But anyway. Their clothing was made of a single piece of fabric without openings or zippers. In his fright, Bailey didn't get around to noticing their hands or feet. Bailey closed his eyes against the bright light and the sight of the men. The heat from the light warmed him through his clothing. He felt his head being turned from side to side as if they were examining his face, nose, and ears. Oddly, he could not feel the men actually touching him, just his face moving. Weird. He could only hope and pray that it would all be over soon and that they would let him go. Then he fell asleep. His next recollection was of being given a message. Through some type of telepathy, the 2 occupants urged him to tell people that UFOs were real, that they meant no harm, and that they desired to land and communicate with mankind unhindered. So common.
It's what they do.
It's just what they do. Why me, he asked in his mind. Why not talk to scientists or somebody who knows more than I do about things like this?
Thank you, Bailey, because that's what we're all asking.
Yeah, no, that's always the question.
Yeah.
And there's only two. I mean, well, there's a lot of things.
Go to the correct people.
It's a lie. Mental illness is involved, diabetes. There's a lot of things. But if you only want to look at the paranormal, there's two things. They're fucking with you. They're constantly fucking with you for whatever reason, or there's an overriding higher agenda, and that this person brings the whole of humanity closer to the truth than Henry Kissinger or Dwight D. Eisenhower, or whoever might be prominent in politics at the time could. Truman. You think of all these more historical or significant historical figures, and you think, tell these people. But maybe in the grand scheme, and this might be giving them like credit for 3D chess playing and a lot more
86D chess.
Yeah. like for some reason Harrison Bailey is going to help lay seeds that these other ostensibly more connected and historically significant men and women can't, but maybe it's true because they might be working with perspectives that we don't have.
Maybe.
On the other hand, they could just be and they're just picking on anyone who happens to be alone.
I mean, he knows what's up. He's like, why me? Go to the local fucking city council. Talk to the comptroller. Talk to the comptroller. Talk to whoever. Come on,
fuck a talk to the hand. That's my new thing.
Talk to the comptroller.
Talk to the comptroller.
Yeah. Right.
I got no time for you.
Exactly.
So, why me? At this point, Bailey paused in a trance and sighed. They say they're in the same shape I am, he recalled. Somebody's always looking at them, like people look at me when I roll the tire. Now it appears that they want people to stop staring at them and to be more friendly. I think they're good people with a problem.
That's loaded.
Yeah.
Wow.
I let them talk. They would like me to be their spokesman for them. Again, a common trope in abductions. They're in the same fix I am. I think they refer to my being black, to being ... not wanted in this society, end quote. That is just true and very loaded, very heavy.
Yeah, Jesus.
But I mean, to find somebody that understands ostracization like they do.
No, definitely, for sure.
It's fascinating. Bailey next was permitted to leave the craft. He found himself walking down a kind of ramp. His tire felt light and rolled slowly down the ramp as if it had lost most of its weight. As soon as Bailey got back on the road again, memory of the encounter immediately slipped from his mind. He forgot the message the occupants had given him. It would be 14 years before Bailey would speak openly about his encounter with the UFO in the woods and his suspicion that somehow the encounter had harmed him physically. Through hypnosis, investigators learned other important facts about Bailey's experience. For example, and remember this is from Ann Druffel's pen, we uncovered new information about Bailey's route from Cicero to Joliet. This is important to our continuing efforts to locate corroborating witnesses to the UFO and occupants Bailey encountered. Bailey consciously remembered walking in a southwesterly direction from Cicero to Joliet, yet hypnosis revealed that he probably took a route which first ran south out of Cicero to Highway 6, then west along the southern boundary of Orland Park. The encounter took place just before the junction of Highway 7. In his effort to seek shelter from driving rain, Bailey may then have turned directly south on Highway 7, also known as Wolf Road. Already confused by his run-in with the odd animals and the mysterious craft, he wandered for hours until he reached a small railroad town. This small community likely was Mokina, Illinois. From Mokina the next morning, he traveled in a generally westerly direction to Joliet. The problem of Bailey's time lapses is a difficult one. As we try to reconstruct the incident, it appears that Bailey lost 2 to 3 hours between the time he encountered the quote-unquote animals and the time that he saw the craft. After he saw the UFO, he underwent another 2 to 3 hour time lapse. That's fucked up.
That's crazy.
From which he emerged feeling fatigued and nauseated. It was late afternoon before he finally came out of that small stretch of woods. So like a 6 hour hunk of time lost in what should have been like a 15-minute shortcut through the woods.
Huh.
A third time lapse, holy shit, took place the next day. Under hypnosis, Bailey recalled that he left the shelter of the depot early in the morning on September 25th, 1951, and began to walk. His next memory was of seeing a sign informing him that he was 3 miles outside of the eastern limits of Joliet. The time was late afternoon. Here it was that a crowd stopped him and demanded to know whether or not he was a spaceman whom they had watched come out of a flying saucer. That was the thing that could have gone south real quick.
Real bad, yeah.
What happened to Bailey between early morning and his afternoon arrival outside Joliet? Since Mokina is only about 15 miles from Joliet, he should have been able to traverse the distance in less than 3 hours. Is it possible that the craft followed Bailey and took him aboard a second time on September 25th? Obviously, people living outside of Joliet could not have seen the craft abduct Bailey near Orland Park, but they could have witnessed a second kidnapping in their own vicinity. So basically, it feels like Druffel's trying to sort of rationalize how this group of people could have seen him come out of a UFO.
Right, with the weird...
So because there's the implication of missing time, I don't blame her for... Listen, we've created bridges much shakier and longer than that.
Yes, we have.
To be sure. But that still is wildly speculative. But it is kind of bizarre that this group of people they're not stopping him apparently because he's a lone black man, which would be unfortunately common enough in that era. They seem to be stopping him because they saw him get out of a UFO.
Right.
And green coveralls and goggles does not an alien make. Like even in 1951, you're going to be able to see it's a human being in an outfit. So that one's hard, but it's interesting. Bailey was so relieved to be dismissed as the spaceman the Joliet area residents had seen coming out of the UFO that he left hurriedly without bothering to ask when and where they had seen the episode take place. 2 years of research have produced documentation concerning Bailey's advertising wheel, his walking tours, and specifically his trip from Gary, Indiana to St. Louis, Missouri. The rainstorm outside Orland Park and his related arrival in Joliet have also been documented. Efforts to locate Bailey's full medical records have met with only partial success. In UFO research, nothing is harder to do than to pry 24-year-old medical records from reluctant hospital staffs. Summaries of Bailey's 1963 surgery mention a gallbladder operation with the help of Dewey Bosga of the Illinois-based Center for UFO Studies. I hope to procure the complete records, which may contain the cryptic notation, quote-unquote, illness unknown, which Bailey remembers seeing. Other pages of the detailed charts may mention the premature internal aging of which Bailey speaks. So, at this point, obviously, Ann Druffel is talking about the difficulty of researching a quarter-century-old case, especially back then in the pre-internet, pre-everything days when it was just if there was no paper, there was nothing.
Yeah,
paper and memory.
It's all boxed up somewhere in a basement. They're like, you're not getting their medical records. They don't even care about HIPAA, but they're just like, we're not going down there to get them.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
His wife, Anna Bailey, fully substantiates Bailey's contention that he always has avoided alcohol and drugs. She states firmly that the Hines doctors told her that her husband's internal organs were 2 to 3 times as old as his external body. Confirmation, it's his wife, granted, but still. Between 1952 and 1969, Bailey experienced seizures similar to grand mal. However, repeated EEG tests failed to uncover any brainwave abnormality which would account for these. During some of these seizures, Bailey remembers experiencing vivid quote-unquote dreams during which he saw the occupants of the silvery gray craft and heard their message once more. Responsible persons in the Pasadena community which Bailey serves as a minister attest to his integrity and stability. He is known as an impressive preacher, an effective Christian leader, and a fearless social activist. Now, that essentially ends the second part of this. There is a bunch of information contending that the physical experience that the now Reverend Bailey went through might have been caused by microwave radiation, including the cramp at the back of the neck, which was started with a prickling feeling, standing in front of the ship in a trance, and again feeling the sensation of needles punching into the flesh, the sense of feeling like your body's vibrating even when you're not moving.
Yeah.
Again, we're limited by late 70s technology. I'm not sure who Ann Druffel spoke to,
right?
But that basically is how this culminates. They did mention this, though, at the very end, and I want to touch on this. We have no way of knowing, of course, whether Bailey was purposefully or accidentally harmed by the UFO and its occupants. Bailey himself believes any injury done to him was unintentional. And then here's the add-on. Until a few months ago, the frog-like creatures described by Bailey seemed unique in the UFO literature. Recently, however, after Bailey's June 1977 Hypnotic session, England's Flying Saucer Review, excellent publication, we've used the FSR I don't know how many times, published a peculiar French case which until then was unfamiliar to American ufologists. According to that story, a French witness driving alone through a, quote, forested marshy area saw a large number of small frog-like humanoids who stared at him with glaring eyes. The sketch the witness later drew is surprisingly like Bailey's. Now, this is interesting. We did this as the Little Green Frogmen, I believe, in episode 72.
Yeah, we did.
So anyone that's interested in that case can just hop right back, I guess pun intended, and fucking check that shit out.
Terrible.
Leap into the catalog.
I promise you, I didn't mean to do that.
I think it's fucking perfect, though.
and figure that shit out. So that's a fascinating one, too, with an army of
helmeted
frogmen.
Frogmen, yeah, totally.
So, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's fucking weird.
Well, all right. We got some corroboration here with the old aliens.
But Bailey's run-ins with flat-faced UFO-nauts, unidentified insects, 1.5-foot-tall frogmen, and a mysterious, perhaps radioactively induced illness would not be the only trials this man of God would face. According to Ann Truffle's quote-unquote California report, which was published in an undated MUFON newsletter, the minister's experiences with the paranormal, improbable as it may seem, took an even stranger turn in the autumn of 1978. Plagued with episodes of extreme sleepwalking, Bailey contacted Druffel, explaining that he was suffering from vivid dreams of alien interrogations. Druffel suggested that he acquire a camera in order to document what might actually be authentic encounters. Bailey did as requested, and on the evening of November 1st, 1978, managed to capture a series of images purported to represent a pair of disembodied extraterrestrial entities. From Druffel's extraordinary MUFON report.
This episode is brought to you by Kaspersky Labs, the Transatlantic Cable Podcast. Rarely does a day pass where a ransomware attack, data breach, or state-sponsored espionage hit the news. Have you found yourself asking questions like, how is Apple's new app tracking policy affecting major social media platforms? I actually have been asking myself that question recently. Or better yet, what is Meta? Is it still Facebook? Is this just some brand overhaul to push another algorithm to sell us garbage from Wish.com? Don't worry, Kaspersky's got you covered. Each week, their team discusses the latest news and trends that you may have missed during the week on the Transatlantic Cable Podcast, mixing in humor and facts and experts from all around the world. The Transatlantic Cable Podcast can be found on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so go check them out.
Under the heading Controversial Entity Photos from California, Part 1, I do not have access to Part 2. I'm not even sure if it was ever published. This is what Ann Truffle writes. Recently in Pasadena, California, a most unusual UFO event occurred. The recipient is a Baptist minister, Reverend Harrison E. Bailey, who is well known to me and respected in his community. I have since 1975 been investigating and documenting his report of an encounter and abduction by 2 UFO nauts in an Illinois wood on September 24, 1951. Reverend Bailey's original UFO experience is lengthy and highly detailed, and for that reason cannot be covered in this column. Some of the facts regarding it have been published in Fate magazine, as we know, and precise descriptions of the prolonged investigation with accompanying documentation have been sent to MUFON and QFOS and to selected researchers nationwide and in Europe. We refer here, however, to a recent incident involving 2 UFO entities, apparently 2 of the same type creatures who engineered Bailey's abduction 29 years ago. On November 1st, 1978, according to Reverend Bailey's recorded statements, he was awakened from a sound sleep by the 2 creatures who first appeared as disembodied heads against the window shade of his studio apartment.
Oh, here we go. Buckle up, boys.
Big fun. The heads were human-sized, dark brown in color, and had distorted features. Normally, the sight of such an apparition would frighten any witness out of his skin. However, particular circumstances preceded this startling incident. These will be explained here in order that the reader can better understand Bailey's subsequent reasoned actions. As early as 1965, Bailey experienced vivid dreams in which he talked with the two entities he had encountered in 1951. He did not, however, connect these dreams with his 1951 UFO adventure until after his 2 hypnotic regression sessions held with Dr. W.C. McCall on May 18, 1977 and September 28, 1977. During these sessions, fuller memories about the encounter and abduction were disclosed. In October 1977, Bailey began to have severe financial worries due to the fact that his government disability pension was abruptly cut off. The dreams about the two entities, which heretofore had occurred only occasionally, began to recur with alarming regularity and were usually accompanied by sleepwalking episodes. Many nights he walked for miles all over Pasadena and surrounding communities, and oftentimes was returned to his home by sympathetic police. The sleepwalking episodes invariably occurred between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m.
It's a hell of a sleepwalking episode when you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to take off to Pasadena and just walk around.
Well, I mean, it is his hometown, but still, to leave your house.
You're hitting the town and walking. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Very. I mean, that's why your body's supposed to freeze up during, REM.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's troublesome. During these dreams, the entities reiterated their original 1951 message. They demanded that he inform the U.S. government and the American populace about UFOs, that they were friendly towards the human race and wished to land unhindered. Nagged by their repeated inquiries, Bailey began to argue with the entities during the quote-unquote dream episodes, protesting that they should contact persons with more influence, preferably fuck-sucking scientists.
I agree with Bailey here.
Leave me
He's
the
on
fuck
the
alone.
right track. Stop fucking with me. Talk to the correct people.
Want to walk on my wheel.
That's it.
The comptroller.
Want to be a minister.
Yeah.
The
I
comptroller.
work with steel. Now I work with souls.
There you go.
This is your
off.
business.
Yeah.
When I discussed these dreams with Bailey, of course, I being Ann Druffel, in the spring of 1978, he stated they were so vivid that they actually seemed real. I suggested he buy or borrow a camera and try to photograph his visitors when they appeared next. In this way, he could determine whether or not they were dreams or reality. On January 8th, 1979, Bailey told me about his November 1st, 1978 encounter with the creatures and added that he had successfully photographed them. The 2-month delay in informing me was caused, he stated, by the fact that the experience had been so upsetting to him that he had not been sure just what to do. As I heard his full account and viewed the 12 photos he had taken, I could understand his reluctance. And the next part is called The Episode. On November 1st, 1978, Bailey recounted he suddenly awoke at 1 a.m. to see 2 brownish, disembodied heads against a bare window shade at the foot of his bed. They were illuminated faintly by the glow of a 40-watt bulb, which he customarily kept burning in his bathroom. He lay still for about 2 to 3 minutes, hoping it was all his imagination, or perhaps the result of the medication which doctors have prescribed for sleepwalking. That might be a factor.
That's interesting because Ambien is fucking straight up psychedelic at times.
Yeah, but is Ambien, did they give you that for sleepwalking? And indeed, did they have it in 79 or 78?
Probably not, but I'm assuming most medicine to make you anti-sleepwalk is going to put you into a fucking stupor.
Yeah, that
I'm
really
sure it
does
does.
stand to reason.
Yeah, for sure.
His head hurt and his eyes burned. He went into the adjacent bathroom and washed his face. As he returned to bed, the faces were still framed in the window shade. See, that sucks. Because, when you get up and you have the balls to walk past the floating heads.
Just like, go away,
you want to wash your face. Exactly. When you come back.
Don't fucking be there. Don't fucking be there.
Do not. You're gone. I'll question my sanity. I'll deal with all that tomorrow. I'll either start drinking or pray harder or whatever the fuck I'm going to do. But just don't be there.
Do all of them.
Yeah, why not? I mean, you can't do all of them.
Yeah.
The world is your oyster.
It might work.
Fuck. So they're fucking there. And that's troublesome. Okay. So, frightened, Bailey turned on all of the lights in his small studio apartment, about 400 watts total. I have never added up all the watts of all the light bulbs available to me. That's interesting.
No, me neither.
The entities spoke with him about 1/2 hour, repeating their message and dictating a long, complicated statement, which they demanded he write down.
Oh God, I hate that.
I know. Now
These fuckers,
now he's
and
gonna
their
have short
demands.
So annoying.
I'm done with these people too.
Right, you know
I'm
what?
done with these heads.
If you can appear to me in my window and be creepy, you know what you can do? Also, you can write me a letter.
Yeah.
You can write it down.
Use your mouth. Here's some paper.
Yeah.
Jot it down.
You ever had someone ask you to Google something?
Oh, yeah.
And they have a phone?
Right
And you
there.
have a phone, like, oh, can you Google that? It's like, hey, you
Whoa.
have a phone too. Yeah. This is MySpace. Use your own phone.
Well, at least maybe at this point, if they're just heads, then they can't write it down.
Or maybe they can't.
Didn't think about that. That's a good
luck.
point. Maybe they don't have arms.
Yeah, but you can mouth write in a pinch.
There you go.
You can dictate.
Yeah.
You can hire somebody from a secretarial pool.
They could breathe and fog up the window and then write with their
their
fucking
tongue.
nose.
Yeah, there. And then here, get a picture of this. Click, and then it's just the longest letter ever of pictures. Okay, bummer.
Okay. Twice during this time, he asked them if he could take their pictures with a one-step Polaroid camera, which he had purchased a couple of months before and which he kept near his bed. It is important to note that, although the camera had a built-in flash mechanism, Bailey apparently did not realize this, and to the best of his memory, none of the necessary flash bars were in the original box. The entities finally consented for Bailey to photograph them, saying that they must de-energize. Bailey did not know what that meant, nor had any notion of how long it would take them to accomplish de-energizing. He waited for about a minute and then took 2 photos of the heads. Then the entities asked him for something to quote-unquote get behind. 2 Halloween masks were lying on Bailey's bookcase. He had planned to attend a Halloween party that evening at his church, but had been too tired. He laid the 2 masks on a small table directly under the window shade and continued taking pictures. At this point, I will refer you to the poorly Xeroxed version of Photograph 1.
Okay.
What?
In which 2 Halloween masks are sitting on what looks like a table
Yeah.
Yep.
with pantyhose. We're going to get to that part in a minute.
Okay, these pictures will be posted on our Instagram. So go down Instagram, follow us. We're going to put these there because people are going to ask to see these pictures. Go to Instagram. They're going to be there. Don't worry about it. I promise you.
Let's try
It
to
will be
find a better quality reproduction of the actual Polaroid, the color Polaroid, because this is something that was transferred to a Xerox newsletter.
Yeah, I see
Then
it.
Xerox the second time.
Yep, not good.
So we're
Not
not. I mean, it's all right. Let's be honest. It's a little dubious, period. But we're not seeing it at its fucking best.
Yeah.
Yeah, comment on the post on Instagram and see what you think.
Okay, so they needed something to get behind. The 2 Halloween masks were there. He continued taking pictures. During the entire photographic session, which Bailey estimated lasted about 7 minutes, the light on his floor lamp dimmed and flickered on and off, but he cannot relate the times of the flickering to any particular photo. As he photographed the masks, which now stood upright on the table against the window shade, he noticed that gray-white appendages had appeared dangling from the bottom of the masks. Their texture and color were like, quote, light gray eggs, end quote, and they took the form of thin, misshapen legs and feet and a minuscule torso. The heads of the entities now seemed hidden behind the masks. The eye holes were black instead of empty. See photo.
Oh, okay. So those are part of the entities.
Those are their legs.
The dangle
the
parts,
Fresno legs.
The Fresno
Those are
legs.
definitely
A part of
Fresno
the-
They
legs.
are definitely pre night crawlers. 100%.
Okay.
Although frightened, Bailey was also enthralled. He took 5 photos of this aspect of the phenomenon. Suddenly, one of the entities jumped from the table and sprang through the open bathroom door. Bailey managed to snap a photo as the creature was framed in the doorway, apparently beginning a spring upward.
Oh,
Now, when you see the picture
Okay.
of these shitbag late 70s Halloween masks with like pantyhose type legs, who
Okay.
knows? Maybe something
Okay.
paranormal.
All right.
And then just imagine that happening.
Yeah.
It actually makes you a little sick to your stomach.
Super creepy. He
If
just
indeed it
jumps
did.
up and runs away. Oh God.
Bailey followed the creature, but by the time he reached the open doorway, the entity had disappeared. In the bathroom, Bailey saw whirling globes of colored light near the ceiling, and other dimmer balls of light were floating nearer to the floor. Fucking Orby time.
Boy.
Bailey accidentally brushed against one of these. It brightened and whirled, and almost instantaneously, there were 4 globes of yellowish bright light whirling around in a circle. Each individual globe was a few inches in diameter. Bailey photographed these before they shot out of sight through the ceiling. The ceiling at this instant seemed to disappear, and Bailey had a heady feeling that he was looking directly into space.
Oh, this just took a psychedelic turn. Oh boy.
That's very much like the
Just
Dove
now?
abductors.
Yeah. Everything before
Okay.
like, explainable.
Is okay.
Right.
Yeah, but now
It
you
was
look
completely
up and you're
normal
like,
before.
Yeah, now you look up and you're like, oh, it's space. This is a whole new level.
Yeah, no, space time. Here it comes.
And it's not helped that fucking one of the masks is clearly a Frankenstein clown, and the other one, I don't know, werewolf Neanderthal. I can't
Yeah.
quite get a placement.
I thought it was like a luchador mask at first, but I can't. I'm looking at like a super grainy photo here that we're all looking at.
Yeah, no, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I'm
but
not
still,
sure.
Space guy, so that's fucking awesome.
That's a thing. Yeah.
The inexplicable happening dulled Bailey's reactions. Back out in the living room, he saw the second entity jump from the table, starting an upward spring. Starting an upward spring. He photographed it as it hurried through the doorway. See photo. Now, when you see photo, you will recognize nothing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
will recognize it is a blur of nothing.
Yeah. I
mean,
can't. There's nothing.
you can kind of make it shape out, sort of.
You cannot make out the shape of a mask, a legged mask,
or
sprinting towards a bathroom.
anything, really.
It
but-
looks like 3 maybe heads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of see his shoulder and like a part of an arm. Maybe.
It's a struggle.
All right. Well.
But just because the reproduction of the photographs are shitty doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just means,
When you're bringing this evidence, you got to bring it properly.
bring the game.
You got to do it.
Okay. So, he took another picture as a second group of swirling lights stayed long enough for him to aim his camera, then disappeared through the ceiling as the first group had done. The phenomenon seemed completed, but Bailey took at least one other photo in the bathroom in hopes of catching some unexpected occurrence. He was left bewildered and exalted, but does not remember returning to bed. The next morning when he awoke, he remembered that he had had another quote-unquote dream about the entities. He rose and was amazed to see his handwritten pages and the 12 Polaroid photos scattered near his bed. So again, if what he says is to be believed, he thought it was just another dream interaction, but this
Right.
time there was some sort of, at
It's
least to
real.
him, compelling evidence. Perusing the pictures, he realized that the dream had been real, in fact, Chris.
No.
But the pictures were as strange as the occurrence itself. They were not like any pictures Bailey had ever seen. Some were completely dark. Others had dim images accompanied by panels of brilliant orangish light. Others showed clearer but shadowed shapes. The strangest of all were the photos of the Halloween masks with their staring black eyes and gray-white limbs. These pictures were in full light. The colors were bright and true. This series of 5 also showed dim yellow globes of light which, in successive shots, made apparent movement from the window shade into the bathroom. Bailey was astounded. He did not know what to make of the pictures. He put them in a safety deposit box at his bank until he could figure out what was best to do. He developed a fear of his apartment, especially at night, and spent the next few weeks at the home of a friend. That's interesting, because I can see there being some truth in that. You know, again, whether it's a mental issue, whether it's whatever, suddenly becoming afraid of the space makes perfectly logical sense to me.
I have no doubt he doesn't believe anything that he is saying.
Right.
It's like Zamfrata. Like we'll go into that, but
Sure.
Yeah.
There's a
absolutely.
There's a very big bridge connection here for me
Surely.
for these cases, but
So, when I saw, again, this is Androffel speaking, the pictures 2 months later, I realized the incongruities and questions they posed. My husband Charles and myself took 36 comparison photos, both with Bailey's camera without flash and with our own Konica with flash. None of Bailey's photos could be duplicated with his Polaroid under the lighting conditions he stated were available to him. The only photos we were able to duplicate, even partially, were the full light pictures of the masks, but this had to be done with flash equipment and our own Konica. Of course, the dangling limbs could not be replicated. We could not think of any material or combination of materials which could replicate the peculiar, flexible texture depicted by the white appendages. Bailey stated that the whitish material, whatever it was not in the apartment when the creatures appeared, neither was it left behind after their departure. We decided to leave this and other phases of replication to others more expert than ourselves. There are, of course, several paranormal implications in Reverend Bailey's photos, as follows. 1. The difference in lighting of the 12 photos suggests that the light source varied considerably from under 200 watts to over 1,000 watts. Shadows in the full light photos also show that the unexplained light source moved from left to right behind Bailey. That's interesting.
That's weird.
2. On at least 2 of the shadowed pictures, part of the overall image seemed double exposed or otherwise perfectly duplicated, while other areas in the same pictures were single imaged and both clear and fuzzy. That seems interesting. I know you can fuck around with Polaroids. I know it used to be a belief that no, you can't, but you can to a degree, I think. But to have some parts double exposed and other parts not, the clear and fuzzy element, I don't understand what that means.
Yeah.
3. The quote-unquote appendages of the entities suggest that the creatures fashioned their own humanoid shapes. Ectoplasm, as described in psychic research literature, is typically whitish or grayish white, and in some manifestations, photographed, appears quite dense and flexible, and of a flexible texture reminiscent of the limbs in Bailey's photos. So now we're getting into ectoplasmic limbs attached to alien intelligences that want to hide behind late 70s shitbag rubber Halloween masks, and I love every bit of that sentence, for the record.
Welcome to the Cryptonaut
Yeah, I'm
podcast.
not against it. This is just going off the rails.
But one of the first things I thought of was ectoplasm.
Well, yeah, when you see that,
Yeah,
I mean, the first thing I thought of was hosiery.
Well, no, that's because that's what it looks like.
'Cause
It
it looks
doesn't
right.
look like the
Leggings.
smoky picture that.
Oh, yeah, of like people puking
the
fucking tendrils of
Yeah.
smoke
Yeah.
and hate. And
No, that literally
that
looks
used
like
to infuriate Houdini.
the impossible to duplicate white pantyhose. Apparently,
or ectoplasm.
All right. So
One of the
this is
two.
how Miss Druffel rounds it out. Reverend Bailey is, in my considered opinion, an honest and rational man. In my 4 years of documenting his 1951 encounter, I have never found any discrepancy in his statements, and many facets of his complex account were verifiable at the source. Are we seeking only quote-unquote acceptable photos to prove the UFO phenomenon? Or dare we venture into the unknown? Can we begin developing ways of analyzing the quote-unquote impossible?
I don't know what.
So are we seeking only acceptable photos? I'll go on a limb and say yeah.
Yeah, why would you say a statement
Yeah.
like that?
I mean, yes, you have to analyze the impossible, I guess. That's what we do
Well,
week
yeah,
after week.
yeah, totally.
But, I mean, what do you mean by acceptable?
You know what?
Ones that don't look utterly fucking fraudulent?
This is the first trip up for me. Like at the end of this, I'm gonna be like, Dreffel's been pretty good with the experiments, the doing the shit, but then she says something like that. I'm like, bruh.
Well, we're gonna deal with that. We're gonna deal with that.
Dude.
And you know what? I'm also gonna bring the ruckus. Let's move on here.
Are you going to bring the thunder too?
I am.
Okay.
Okay. In an effort to take a more incredulous look at the circumstances involving the Harrison Bailey case, author, ufologist, and editor of the MUFON Journal, Richard H. Hall, wrote a rebuttal to Druffel's account titled, Editorial Comment, A Skeptical View of the Bailey Case. And I'm going to present this now too, because we always try to give everyone their day in court, as it were, and then we'll do the proper breakdown. The Harrison Bailey case is extremely complex, and Ann Truffle is to be commended for her extensive investigation, which is still continuing. Any complete case study, however, must also consider negative evidence. The other side of the story is A, Bailey's long record of activities and claims, and B, the nature of the hypnotic regression that led to the abduction story. Bailey's record includes 1. Bizarre public behavior dating back to the 1950s. In 1975, he was found suspended from a tree in Pasadena under circumstances that police found highly suspicious, quote unquote. He claimed that Nazis had placed him there. That was published in the Pasadena Guardian, October 15th, 1975. 2. various statements about his medical history that he attributes to his doctors, alleging several specific illnesses and medical anomalies supposedly resulting from alien contact. Many of these claims were explicitly disconfirmed in the medical records. That is a little iffy because Ann Druffel was still doing her damnedest to find them.
She didn't even get a chance to check them out.
But again,
how does he know? Okay.
And no evidence was found to support such claims that his internal organs and his teeth had aged abnormally. I don't remember teeth being mentioned, but okay. So, again, I don't know where that's going. I mean, if she's still looking for it, just because she couldn't find the records that specifically said those things doesn't mean they don't exist.
No, but that's why he's including it in negative evidence.
Right. 3. His insistence that the pictures taken in his room were made without flash bulbs, yet they showed typical reflective patterns off of shiny surfaces exactly like those obtained with flash bulbs. In 1979, Bailey, a self-styled minister, issued a rambling statement purporting to contain, quote, messages for Earth, end quote, the message content indicating Christian spacemen, just like Adamski's spacemen. You remember the Adamski probable hoax where he talked to like the fucking Nordic people that were very Christian based, whatever. They spoke of cosmic philosophy, and Dan Fry's spacemen spoke with technical jargon reflecting their own beliefs. Okay, so he's just mentioning other contactees.
Yeah.
From Bailey's perspective, they have a Christian content. Medical data on Harrison at the Northwestern University Medical Center dated November 18, 1966 showed that he had, quote, mild cerebral damage, end quote. And this is part of Ann Druffel's report from March 13, 1979. It is not widely known that in the 1967 Herb Shermer abduction case, psychological testing showed a classic brain damage pattern that fit exactly with a pre-existing head injury. Source, Dr. David R. Saunders, psychologist, former member of the Condon Committee, Colorado UFO Project. Again, I don't know how much that fucking elevates your status in my estimation, but it is what it is.
Yep.
Then there's the hypnosis. I think we're going to find a lot to agree with here. Even if we did not know as much about Bailey as we do, the techniques of hypnotic regression used do not inspire confidence that an objectively real experience is being described. At the precise point where Bailey, under hypnosis, is not recalling an abduction, the hypnotist, up to this point asking neutral questions, abruptly suggests to the witness that he describe an imaginary abduction. Ironically, Bailey himself openly acknowledges fantasizing because he was asked to do so. Under hypnosis, Bailey is asked to reconstruct the times of various events. When he is asked to look at his watch and state the time, he obliges. At one point, when asked whether he is wearing a watch, he distinctly says no. At another point, he says, I have no watch. Later, when asked, what time does your watch say now, he replies, about 2:30 or 3. And later, I'd figure about 5 o'clock. Here and elsewhere in the transcripts, it is clear that the witness was repeatedly prompted and was obligingly suggestible. This prompting especially casts serious doubt on the entire hypnotically derived abduction story. In most respects, Bailey's story and behavior are not typical of the classic 1950s contactees. Rather, they suggest another hypothesis, other than actual abduction or conscious dishonesty. A mildly brain-damaged, mentally confused person who wants and probably psychologically needs caring attention, and who may or may not have had a UFO encounter. Under this hypothesis, the disconfirmed medical claims in the dubious photographs can be interpreted as less than conscious attention-seeking devices to maintain contact with a caring and supportive investigator, a phenomenon familiar to investigators of purported adepts in parapsychology research. UFO investigators continue to underestimate the role of human psychology when overpowering emotional needs lead people to engage in unconscious fabrication in order to get the attention and to feel some sense of individual importance. Richard Hall. That's how he ends his piece. And it's important, and I acknowledge a lot of it. So let me end up with how I wrap this up, and then we'll break this shit down properly. While I wholeheartedly agree with Richard Hall's statements regarding the fallibility of hypnosis and the sketchiness of Bailey's medical records, his assertion that Bailey was merely a, quote, mentally confused person who wants and probably psychologically needs caring attention, end quote, seems both unnecessarily dismissive and also to describe the bulk of the human race. which is not to say he's wrong. Surely there have been cases where genuine Fortean experiencers have fabricated subsequent events in order to reignite the flames of the curious and justify the continued attention heaped upon them by paranormal investigators. The addiction of fame, no matter how dubious its origins, is well documented. And even those who have succumbed to the Punic temptation to remain in the limelight through treachery and hoax may well have started down the path of eventual chicanery by an authentic, life-changing encounter with the unknown. This can certainly be applied in some cases, but not all. In particular, in regards to the Harrison Bailey case, for as strange as the series of incidents may seem, it must be remembered that for decades the protagonist went out of his way to avoid any sort of celebrity in conjunction with his experience. In fact, if it weren't for the physical ailments he suffered due to his ostensibly intergalactic interactions, it seems a good bet that the public at large would never have heard his name or about the extraordinary incidents at Orland Park. Whatever was at play in the odd string of encounters Harrison Bailey claimed to have had with entities and objects unknown, it's undeniable that these bizarre events would have a profound effect on all aspects of his life, from personal and professional to physical and psychological. Bailey's life was upended by his encounters. All too often, debunkers dismiss anything not already printed in academic texts as fact to be little more than superstitious claptrap, while more open-minded, though in some ways equally self-delusional paranormal investigators tend to swing the pendulum too far in the opposite direction by suggesting that anything is possible and therefore everything is probable. In the hazy mire of supernormal research, it pays to walk the line and remain somehow open-minded yet reasonably skeptical at the same time. Because, like it or not, the world is a messy place. And sometimes serial killers love kittens, pediatricians hate kids, and even pathological liars can have genuine paranormal encounters, as can dentists, store clerks, and even former steelworkers. So, I'm just saying, while there was a really condemning stamp put on the end of this, and I felt totally obliged to include it by Richard Hall, I still think we should keep an open mind when discussing what could be going on. And I think we might even need to necessarily separate the 1951 events from the 1978 events to a degree.
No, I think you're right.
Which doesn't mean I think that the 78
completely.
is definitely a lie, but I think it bears separate scrutiny.
But if he was dealing with something mentally that was deteriorating him,
right? Then it makes sense.
I mean,
to separate
he
that,
he could have very well could have experienced something, but because of his old age and whatever he might have going on, I mean, he could be literally losing his mind.
No, if we want to play we want to rationalize it from a paranormalist point of view, and obviously that is our bias to a degree. Obviously, more so probably from me and you, Mark, but still. Then we could easily say, well, the radiation that caused these lifelong flying saucer illness, the microwave-induced radiation that, and Druffel seemed to support that theory, obviously affected the brain. And in the end, he was creating fantasies that were just way over the top, you know?
If it's some form of like dementia or something, I mean, that could totally do it.
But that it in no way discredits the Frogman encounters of 51.
Exactly.
But to me, that might be even a little too easy because there's a lot of things going on. First off, we can't even deny. I mean, I'm jumping around a lot, but in the 78 version, like she goes out of her way to mention he had just lost his pension. He's already living hand to mouth. Obviously, being a minister is not paying the bills because he lives with his wife in a studio apartment. You know, they're in middle age. He lost his government compensation. And so we all know the stress of a huge financial burden or anything else that's super stressing you out, much less his health problems, can create problems with sleep that might result in mild hallucinations, might result in sleepwalking.
Yeah,
Who
well,
knows?
meds.
And
that's
the
meds.
Yeah. Exactly. The meds he was on, what kind of meds are you getting pre-1980? To fucking mitigate sleepwalking.
I don't know.
I'm assuming just shit to knock you the fuck out. I'm assuming that's all they had back then.
Yeah.
That's sad.
So there's a lot of factors, especially in 1978, that could have contributed to a highly fantasy-prone sort of interaction. Or maybe, let's be cold and ruthless, him thinking, I've lost my financial leg. I mean, I don't want to end up in a fucking box. Who does? If I can reignite something, a few years ago, I got a little hype for these frogmen. If I can make something new happen, then maybe I can get a couple bucks. Maybe I can keep me and my wife afloat. And I wouldn't fault somebody necessarily if that's their only go-to. I'm not saying that's what I think happened. But I'm just saying there's a lot of... That's why we have to look at these as separate incidents.
I think you're right. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, the medical, it's just like to say that, there was brain damage. I'm like, well, you just don't know how far that went.
Yeah.
I mean, the story doesn't make it seem like he's being dishonest about it. So it makes me just think that he really does. It's like this one thing happened in the 50s.
Right.
Whether it did or not, something happened.
Sure.
And then this seemed to be maybe pre-damage, or maybe it was minimum there at one point, and then it seems like it was a progressive stage, right? Like, who knows what would have happened if he didn't get hypnosis?
Sure.
Like, would it have progressed in the same kind of way? Like the way there's a little thing about tapes they got. There was a quote from like some sort of taping of this thing. I would love to hear those fucking tapes.
Sure.
But yeah, suggesting to your guy, like, let's imagine that you were abducted. What would that be like for you?
Yeah, that's
right.
I'm like,
there's the quote from the hypnotist.
Yeah.
Okay, Harrison, I want you to do a little experiment for us. I'm going to ask you to use your imagination. I want you to imagine that you were taken aboard, and like you're saying, tape transcript of the May 1877 session.
Yeah, like
so you're right. That kind of suggestive language, it's terrible. Well, I mean, again, none of us are proponents of hypnotism for truth. I mean, I'm not always against it. Like, sometimes it might illuminate some things, but to use it as an excavator of facts is asinine.
Yeah, it seems like in all cases of this, it's like they're just recalling all these specific super fucking things even decades later.
Right.
I'm like, that your brain does not
usually work that way.
No, not at all.
There is finite space in your brain, believe it or not, and things get replaced and memories are not there anymore, no matter how hard you fucking look.
Right.
So
it's all very true. So knowing that that's dubious, let's just take it one step at a time. So in 51, this dude, he's a steel mill worker. He's a hard-ass man who wants to make money on the weekend. Like, he's obviously not wasting any time. He's ambitious in a way that I can't even imagine. Like, he's going to spend his weekend walking miles and miles to advertise just to supplement income. And I don't know what kind of money a black man in Gary, Indiana in the early 50s makes in a steel mill. If you work at a steel mill now in a post-union type way, especially in upstate New York, you're going to make bank. Back then, who the fuck knows? Maybe it's subsistence living. Thank you.
That's
Chris.
a shit word. I know. That's why I never use it.
So maybe it's just barely getting food on the table for him and his wife and kids. He might have kids for all we know, and they just aren't mentioned. But he's working hard. So you gotta give him points for moxie. There's no advantage at this point in society at all to say you're fucking running into aliens. You're going to get ostracized. You're going to get maligned. And pretty soon after, people are going to write contactee books that'll make a couple bucks. But I don't know how many of those people, especially in the 50s, were black. I mean, I know Betty and Barney Hill come the mid-60s, they kind of started breaking the mold, but society was starting slightly to change by that point. I don't know. It seems like Harrison Bailey was never about exploiting it monetarily.
No, up to that point, it was pretty... It seemed par for a weird experience, and this is the time that it happened.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing like but there's no... Things. That's why I'm comparing it to Zamfretta. It's kind of normal, and then all of a sudden it's like, what the fuck land?
Yeah. That's true. And does that mean that fucking things just got weirder? Or does it mean that
I don't know.
The recipient is like taking it into places in their imagination that is just fucking woo-woo? There's just no way of really knowing.
Just depending on how he reacted with the hypnosis like that, I mean, what ideas were planted.
Right.
They asked him to do an experiment, so what things were put in there that he wouldn't really have any idea of if it happened or if it didn't happen. And how many memories do you have that they're in the fucking third person? Where you're like, oh, yeah, no, I remember that. And
Oh,
you're like,
tons.
why am I seeing myself in the third person doing something?
Always
Yeah, no, for
seeing
sure.
myself in the third person in memories. Always.
So if this guy's experiencing that and he has these things where basically, and again, I do believe that the first experience happened, but that, you know, these images or events are suggested to him, and then as he gets older and might have something going on, everything's just going to get fucking totally twisted in your mind, and you're just not going to know what's going on, you know?
You're right. And to speak again to the alleged brain damage, I mean, it wasn't an accident in the steel mill. Did something happen between
Right.
then? Could it be atrophy from space radiation? I mean, to go to the opposite extreme of like commonplace to like
Right.
unlikely, but still possible, I guess. I mean,
Or like a tumor or something.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, well, that would probably be in the medical
Well,
records,
yeah,
but
should be. Yeah.
and yeah, we all crave attention and this and that, but still that doesn't. So here's where I'm going to go off the reservation a little bit and be like, what if he was a product of some kind of experiment? Like, what if the people in the pod were just people, just dudes with fucking faceplates mashed up against their grills, like we talked earlier, just talking to them? I mean, we know the government ran all kinds of weird experiments. If this guy was part of an early psychedelic fucking mind, I mean, he's a lone person.
Mm-hmm.
He is of a lower economic background. He's a black man in 50s America, so vulnerable as hell.
Yeah.
And if there's one person that you're going to take off, and you know, he didn't see, I mean, he saw like a little twister, but he didn't necessarily see the UFO land, the UFO takeoff.
Right.
There's no true indication that these frog-like creatures, if they were real, came from a UFO, or the bug creatures,
Mm-hmm.
or the
right.
heads in his room for that matter,
Right.
even though all of it gets associated with UFO stuff. And that's another part where Druffel, I might disagree with a little bit. Another UFO encounter that happened in 78 were these two floating heads in a window. Well, they're, I guess, UFOs in the sense that the heads are floating, but I can identify them as fucking heads.
A head-shaped UFO in the window.
But otherwise, I really did think she did an exemplary job of chronicling this.
Yeah, for sure.
But what, you know, let's just work on this theory for a second. What if it was like an experiment? It's just two dudes, two American dudes. They get them, they fucking lock him down, drug him up with whatever it is, be it something psychedelic, be it whatever. And then he's got these like twisted, half-lost memories. That would put him in a haze. He falls asleep twice in the woods. He barely makes it to the Mocana, Illinois railroad, depot where he can get a few hours sleep. It just fucks him up enough that it lays the groundwork. And if other things were done, then they could have been detrimental to his health. Now, of course, a lifetime working in a fucking steel mill is not going to do any wonders for your respiratory system or anything else.
Yeah, no, that's bad news. I guess I suppose, like, in his wheel travelings, maybe he stumbled upon something he should not have seen. Or,
Possibly.
or some sort of weird fucking shit.
I'm just trying to go out there because it seems like this is atypical of aliens. Like, not in the sense there's missing time, but all right, so, and again, I know I'm pulling like wild hairs out of my ass by suggesting it's a government experiment. I'm not even saying that's what I advocate. I'm just saying, what if? Say this is a truly extraterrestrial encounter. He sees a whirlwind. He gets neck cramps. All of a sudden, ignoring the hypnosis factor, just playing it chronologically the way it allegedly happened, all of a sudden he sees these fucking scurrying things all around, which is icky. If you suddenly see like literally a small army of bugs crawling in front of you and around you, you're going to get tweaked out. But then walking frogs, 1.5 feet tall, brown, stripy, slit-mouthed fucking walkie frogs with the eyes wrapped around their head and the whole 9 yards, and they're constantly touching you and jumping and touching you. And you're just like, what the fuck are you doing? What the fuck is going on? None of this is atypical of an extraterrestrial encounter.
It's super psychedelic.
It is super psychedelic.
Yeah.
It is tripping balls.
Yeah.
It is like what happens when you see some potato bugs and 3 bullfrogs and you are dosed to the tits. That's when then
you're
just
talking to
walking,
them.
just like, what are you doing? And they might be biting me and I think they're on me and I'm rubbing them off and I don't know what, and I'm going to run ahead. And when I run ahead, there's these 2 guys and it could have been like fucking Fred and Bill in a Winnebago pulled over the side of the road. But because you're fucking dosed to the gills because you ate a magic mushroom or whatever the fuck you did, all of a sudden they've got fucking weird compression face and like, hey, where are you going? And the conversation was prosaic as fuck. It could have been the real conversation you would have with 2 guys at the side of a road.
Right. Except
the way you remember it, it's an egg-shaped UFO with fucking green helmeted pressy faces.
Yeah.
Or it could be fucking aliens wearing green helmets with their faces all fucking squished. That's the fucked up thing.
Yeah, that's kind of the...
Like, I don't think he's lying, but why?
No, right.
Well, like, what is this? It's really fucking hard to wrap around because this makes me really want to be skeptical, but it also makes me really want to be like, all right, let's start looking at new paradigms for these events to happen.
But they'll also like that information only came after.
Except for the discussion with the guys in the UFO.
Right, except
Right,
for
that
that. But
was
like all the
earlier.
psychedelic shit came after.
The frogs and the bugs.
So it's
even-
it's hard to be like, oh, maybe he walked into some weird experimental gas shit.
See, that's
Right?
what I'm talking about. They were experimenting with gas in Orlon Park.
I don't know if we have any evidence.
I still
that
feel like-
What if it was
points
like
towards that?
what if it was anti-frog gas? And it scared the bugs, and it
just-
made the frogs start hopping. But when fucking this poor guy, he's only wearing goggles and boots and gloves.
Anti-frog
He
gas.
doesn't have anything protecting his face. He doesn't even have a handkerchief. He breathes in the anti-frog gas. It starts making him trip. So when he sees the bugs scooting and the fucking frogs hopping, he's like, and then he runs into the government operators,
Listen,
and they're
I
like,
just-
"Hey man,
it's-
where you going? Everything's cool."
It's the
Yeah.
fact that hypnosis brought it out. We're all skept of it.
Well, you have to be.
I mean, if that was something he originally encountered, not under that, like immediately,
If he
we'd be
talked
having a
about
different
it.
conversation.
Of
Yeah.
course.
But now it's just like, well,
I'm
But
also,
you can't completely dismiss everything hypnosis elucidates.
no, you can't. But it's always very specific things. When it comes to that stuff.
I
And
would
it's
say,
like,
from my point of view, the majority of things that come out under hypnosis, you can poo-poo. But to me, and I'm probably being very generous when I say it, it's like 70-30. 30 is still enough for me to say that maybe some of it is an interesting glimpse of a truth that was hidden. Now, I come about these figures from the depths of my ass. I'm the first to admit that.
solid 30 for you.
But a solid 30. But I don't. But for Chris, it might be 95.5. I don't know. But I don't fully discount everything that comes out during hypnosis. I think it can be easily leading and clearly,
Yeah.
MC fucking McGannicky or whatever the fucking doctor's name was.
Yeah, that's it. No, that was it.
He clearly was leading.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
And
really
it was
bad.
not
Real
exactly.
bad.
It's not what you want in a pristine fucking
No.
hypnotic
Yeah,
encounter.
I know. It's just decades later is like.
That's the tough. What's also kind of weird about it too is that they come to him with this message, and he's the one that has to deliver it. He's clearly like, "No, get scientists," but then he forgets it because all of a sudden, his whole experience to him is just forgotten, and it's not uncovered later until he goes under hypnosis. But then when the message is out there, apparently it had some like weird Christian bend to it or something.
Well, and of course he's going to put a patina on it,
Which is understandable
because
because
his current beliefs.
Yeah, it's a new
it's
thing,
what he
so-
knows.
100%.
Right.
I have no, because that's how the human mind works, and that's another thing that makes me think that there's something else maybe going on that is not extraterrestrial specifically, though maybe it is. Maybe it's interdimensional. Maybe it is government. But it almost seems like there is one specific agenda. Aliens say, or military doctors, whatever it may be, are doing something to you, but they have to leave you with something. They're like, so now that you're done with this, make sure you tell all the people UFOs are real and we're
Yeah.
coming and we need hugs, and don't look at us like we're strangers, but don't stare at us too long. Whatever these weird
Yeah.
semi-conflicting statements are.
Yeah.
And nuclear war is bad. Like, it's always like, save the trees, nukes are bad, technology eats it, and we're here to help you, and we're your friend. Make sure you tell everybody. But that almost seems like a throwaway thing that they put on like a psychic Band-Aid to kind of cover up whatever damage and or help, perhaps, that they were really doing to your brain.
Right.
Whatever the fuck it is that they were really doing to their human victims, or patients, maybe to be more benevolent about it. It seems like then they put on this patch of, tell everyone UFOs are real, nukes are bad, save a whale, suck it, go home. And you wonder why it's constant, because they're not telling people that can actually make an active difference.
Yeah,
they're
no.
not. They're not doing anything proactive towards it. I mean, the fact that there hasn't been a nuclear war, I guess you could say, is maybe proactive alien agenda, but we don't have any proof of that. So why the fuck are they always telling people with no real influence to do these great fucking ambassador speeches, and they don't do anything to help them corroborate the fact that they actually were there?
No, that's the biggest problem.
It seems like a lie constantly.
Yeah.
Not that the aliens themselves aren't really there, but that they are lying to them and what their actual purpose is.
Well, because it's always, they make it exceedingly difficult for them. They give you the mission, and then you try, and then they agree, like, hey, I need some proof or something. Okay, and then it's like exceedingly difficult. Well, first of all, I gotta get behind masks.
I gotta hide behind something,
and then I gotta book around the room.
Yeah, they're not
I'm
helping
like,
him out at all.
Why not just
You'd think if they would want him to convey the message, they
set
would,
up the lights properly?
Yeah.
You want to do that?
Chris is big into lighting. He
Yeah.
can help. Totally.
Wait, first off, we got to de-energize Secondly, we need a mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Third, wear your wife's pantyhose.
Yeah, and for the love of God, just get the fucking message out.
Just
like,
do it.
Why is it got to be this weird convoluted thing? Oh, that's right, because it's aliens. Because that's what they fucking do.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Or they don't want it. They really don't want or give a fuck.
Right.
They don't care about it at all. And they're doing whatever. Like, if we had to, like, literally relate to elk and we could communicate them in some meaningful way, if we were, like, shooting down to, like, fucking, I don't know, test where, you know, they're living and their breeding grounds and who they're fucking and maybe eat them occasionally, but we had to leave them with a message to make them feel better. We're from the sky and we want all elk kind to be together and tell elk kind that when they see people in orange suits, they're really nice and not to be afraid of them and will come more soon. You know, whatever.
Yeah.
Just some
I see that.
throwaway garbage patch to, like, cover up their trauma that doesn't really work, but that they kind of take with them, like, you know, they want to say they're cool, but nothing adds up to that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, well, that would be more like, all right, elk, here's the deal. We're going to help you out, but first of all, I need 6 pairs of socks in orange. I'm going to hide behind this tree. You can get a picture of me, though, but I'm going to hide behind the tree. They'd be like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
Yeah, it's fucking weird.
Yeah, it's not helping anything with the messaging at all. So whatever contact that they may have had here, they completely fucked it up 100%.
Or they didn't.
And it's just that he could be experiencing. I mean, unfortunately, he very well could be experiencing some form of mental deterioration.
Sure. I mean, it seems that way
Even
for
if
sure.
I mean, and the sad part is this really could be him being exposed to a UFO, having radiation, and all of a sudden just slowly declining.
I mean, I definitely want to believe Harrison Bailey.
Yeah, no, I mean, it just seems like most things in with how we talk about this, like he stands to gain nothing except for ridicule.
In a lot of ways.
And there's no way to capitalize on this, even with his photographs and everything. I mean, he's not talked about. It's not like this thing is like sticking out like, you know, this huge photographic evidence of look what I got. I mean, maybe he thought that's what he was going to do if it was some sort of deceptive behavior. But I think like many people before him, it's never happened. Travis Walton is the only one that really ever kind of like was able to capitalize on anything.
Well, a lot of people have
them,
capitalized.
like Pascagoula and stuff like that. But you're not making millions, for Christ's sake. You're not even barely making a fucking living doing it. You're just trying to relay your experience out
If I was trying to figure out a way to make a living, one of the last things I would do is go out of my way to fake a paranormal encounter, do my best to have at least some semblance of circumstantial evidence to support it, and then try to live that lie the rest of my fucking life.
It doesn't work.
And have to explain it to true believers constantly, and have to deal with skeptics constantly, and deal with the humiliation of society ostracizing you, even in the 21st century, for being that asshat that experienced it. And so there's, I mean, a lot of people that are coming forward, I really think genuinely had an experience or genuinely believe they did, because as we've said over and over again, the scant advantages are far outweighed by the mountains of disadvantages that come to living that fucking life.
And like you said, even when you do come out like Travis Walton, you catch a raft of shit.
Oh God!
Like, I mean, that poor guy has just been fucking, you know, abused all over the place.
Yeah, whatever celebrity and notoriety he has now, and surely he's got the respect of a lot of ufologists and people that follow these things, including us. That was long. That was decades in coming. Yeah, and it doesn't mean he's still not getting shit in his day-to-day life.
Yeah, and it ruined his entire fucking life.
Basically,
I mean, it's pretty fucking harsh. So
no way to live.
So yeah, man, I don't know. Harrison Bailey, god damn, it is definitely a psychedelic fucking weird one.
Moving on to 78, he's either like fully off the fucking rails at this point,
right,
or whatever. How tragic would it be if this is actually the one that happened? Like, these weird energy forms that look like dark human heads are communicating with them. They're like, let me de-energize. No, I need ectoplasmic fucking mini torso and legs. Throw that clown mask on me. I just feel more comfortable. I've got zits. I don't want to look, don't take a picture of me right now. And then they're just sitting there. So what does it look like? It looks like 2 Halloween masks propped up on a fucking nightstand with pantyhose. Yeah. And then they jump. They jump and run, and sparkles appear everywhere. And you can only capture that so much in Polaroid film.
Yep.
It's not like he's got a fucking even Super 8 camera on him or whatever you might have, rudimentary video at that time. And so that's one of the things too. It's so asinine that, of course, my first instinct is to be like, well, Jesus Christ, he's struggling. He's trying to fucking make ends meet, do something. Right. But on the other hand, had it happened just like that, boy, isn't that just another way for the paranormal to fuck the average guy? Just fuck him over. Because everything about that story is ridiculous,
Yeah, it's
absurd,
insane.
Yeah.
and asinine. But I'd love to see clearer versions of these fucking, I don't know, masks with pantyhose leaping towards the bathroom. Because the
Yeah.
version we have is a shitmare of shadow.
Yeah, it's awful, and hopefully we'll be able to track those down and post those on our Instagram for everybody to see. So yeah, man, there you have it. The Wild World of Harrison Bailey Part 2, the 1-2-parter. There it is, boys.
1-2 punch.
Yeah, fuck, that gets super fucking weird. You know,
I want to believe.
I know, I do too, honestly. I want to believe that the first one happened, and that I just think the second one,
We know bipedal frogs are no joke.
no.
No.
That shit
No.
happens.
I mean, unless, Jesus Christ, we're dealing with some kind of weird ultra-terrestrial fucking puppet show of horror here.
and why not?
Because that's kind of what they do. It is their jam.
Think of it. Harrison Bailey could have been
I mean,
a fucking
I don't
one-man
know.
Ponderosa for decades for hungry ultra-terrestrials.
Yeah, Jesus Christ,
And
man.
when they stopped eating as well because he found the Lord, he became a minister. He's doing his thing. He's come, made peace with the frogmen and the squishy-faced fuck-alls. What do? They throw a couple of heads at his window with some pantyhose, fucking re-terrify him all
Awful.
over again. Next thing you know, the buffet is replenished and the terror ensues.
Yeah, but he managed to throw a Christian slant into the message, though.
It's true, we did.
Now, maybe by throwing the Christian slant in the message is what made them come back all the harder.
And also, well, or it protected them because if you did the Lord's Prayer, won't that make the grays go away?
I've heard people
Possibly.
There was a
praying-
line in there,
praying the
the
gray away.
original Lord's Prayer
Yep.
of Grays.
Yeah, about leaving me alone.
Our Father who art in heaven, Grays go away.
There you go.
No, I do remember that distinctly from Sunday school.
That's the OG.
That's going to work right there. Thank you all so very much for joining us, the Cryptonaut Podcast. Oh, boys, we are available on the social medias. We're on the Instas and the Twitters and the Facebooks. What Up Facebook group? Check that out. Woo. We have a Facebook fan group. It is tied to our Facebook page. Be sure to go there and check that out. Thank you to everybody over there that supports us in those platforms.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/Cryptonaut Podcast. $1 is the shout out and the bonus, one bonus audio. $5 is the shout out and the no more than 4. But this last month here in October, we did have more than 4.
Oh my
Yeah.
So
God.
we broke our own rule.
Damn.
No, we told them that it was going to be a lie at some point.
Yeah,
Well,
I
we said no
know.
more fun. I'd be like, yeah, but it could be.
But
more.
it could be.
And we
On
might,
occasion.
we might have some other more
Yeah,
bonus.
maybe we'll skip one later just so we don't look like liars.
No, we got other bonus audio things happening, so it might be more than 4. But no more than 4 for this moment right now in November, or maybe we're lying again.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
That's what we do.
That really is what
pretty
we
much
do.
Constantly.
we do, consistently lie about what we're going to do. It's just how we fucking roll. That's how we've gotten this far so far. HellerSpace.com. Get yourself those T-shirts. TE Public offers the Holy Shirt Guarantee. Use it. If your shit comes fucked up, have them fix it for you, and they do. It's great.
Yeah.
We got some new designs up there, so be sure to check that out. Oh, yes. Also, too, with the Patreon Discord, we are going to be having some Discord announcements coming up, as there are some Discord events that have been organized by the mod team over there.
Oh,
So,
shit.
I'm going to actually be talking with them this week.
Are we
about that.
participating in these?
Some of them we are, some of them we are not. Some of them are just a community-based thing, and then some of them we have an open invitation to.
Wow.
So, perfect. So thank you all.
I love being included.
Everybody over on the Discord, hooking it up over there. We appreciate it so very much.
Yeah.
And we're talking with you soon.
Yipper dupper.
As in-
Stay on the road.
Stay on the road.
Stay on the road.
Shortcuts never lead anywhere good.
No, never.
You know, and
Wear a gas mask and stay on the
Yeah, I know,
road.
Yeah,
jeez.
really.
It's
Jesus.
hard enough. Everything's hard enough in life. When you add weird shit, this poor fucker. It's not
Yeah, it
like
sucks.
so many other things. Like it was a weird day, or it might have messed me up for a while, but it was pretty cool. Now I got a good story to tell. That's just
No, this
that's
ruined-
the garbage pile of fucking paranormal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because whatever happened, it didn't help him. Not
No,
one little bit.
not at
Harrison
all.
Bailey, our heart goes out to you, man.
Yeah, for sure, dude.
God bless.
There it is. We'll talk to you soon.
Goodbye.
Peace.
Beep.